while we let you take over. Okay. Okay, so it looks like it's just coming up here. All right. Anyway, people should be seeing something in green that says Healthy Eating 101. Is that what you're seeing?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so what you're seeing, so what we did was we took some of our best ideas from custom e-learning programs and tried to make them templatized. So here's an example of just kind of layered information. So it's images, but instead of just, you know, this is an article with the sort of the content rearranged, basically. So that's a very simple example of something we call a click and learn. I'll show you another example. Here's what we call a flashcard. So what's neat about the flashcard is that it has a little bit of movement to it. And again, the way we built this, it's not, the images and the content and everything are all separate from the functionality. I mean, so when we set out working on this project, we had certain goals. So one is that the content and the functionality are separated. So we can load, and so I'll show you examples of other flashcards with completely different content, and it all works with exact same functionality and configurable as well. Some other examples, we've got a wonderful medical illustrations group and some fantastic stuff there. So this is kind of a click and learn where understanding complications of diabetes or high blood sugar, and so it leverages some of the great content that we have in medical illustration. It's another kind. We have a lot of video, and we're not afraid to shoot video when we need it. So here's an example of like excuses for why people don't want to do something unpleasant. So you can actually run these, and there's a nice empathic voice telling you, hey, you know what? You have to stick yourself. It's unpleasant. It does hurt, but here's why you need to get over that and do it yourself. So these are all programs designed. You know, these are bits of content designed for some chronic condition programs. Here's an example of just an article that's been repurposed to be done as, and so I don't know if I said it, but micro learning units is what we call these things, these reusable elements. So like what you see in this call out box here, we didn't have to create that box as, you know, this is not an image that we had to create, but this is all programmatically created. So again, it's easy. If an author wants a call-out box like this, they specify the color, the location, and the text, and there it goes. So that's the kind of scalability that we're talking about here.
Quick question here for you, Matt. So people in general, they don't come to Staywell.com to see these kinds of interactives. Is it that these things are all licensed by your different customers, and you might have to have similar content in for 5 different customers that all looks kind of the same way? How does that work?
Right. So we have so what you're seeing right here are kind of like off-the-shelf ones that clients can take as is. But the way, and specifically Mary and the RSuite team really helped us with this. If a client says, hey, look, we want the same content, but we want it branded differently. So we want different colors. We want our logo at the bottom, et cetera, et cetera. We can do all that without having to change the content. So we're not duplicating that content and changing it, but we have basically externalized the styling and the colors and things like that. So you have the same content with different styling, and so you're actually creating new MLUs, but they're all just variations, but they're reusing the same content. So if something has changed, steamed clams now all of a sudden have great health benefits, then we can update it here once, and then those updates flow through to all those instances where that content is being used.
That's fantastic.
So what I'm doing is showing you these like as they kind of sit on a web page, but they are often kind of pop-ups. So like I'll show you an example of one that we've done, a custom one. This is something that we've done actually for the Alzheimer's organization. So this is a standardized template, but it's got a client's specific content to it, and this is all about Alzheimer's basically. So that's more like a click and learn. But then there's also more complex ones. So this is something called Live Healthy, where you click on something and you figure out your personal plan. And so I can say, hey, I want to read daily. I want to play cards. I want to, attend webinars, right? And I want to visit a museum and things like that. So I can go through and talk about, so the use case here is that someone with Alzheimer's and a caregiver go to the Alzheimer's organization, and they're starting to reflect and think about, how they need to plan for the future. And this is an interactive tool where they can do that. And then the neat thing about this one in particular is that, when they're done going through all these different pieces, you push personal plan, and basically it puts all that information into a table, and you can go back and edit them, or you can just download this whole piece. So this is like a custom PDF that gets created on the fly when you fill this thing out. So without having to have any logins or anything like that, we've given an interactive tool where the user can essentially save their work. So again, all this stuff is templatized. So there's nothing, so you could swap out any of these images or any of the text, or say, you know what, I want 5 of these sections and not 6. I'm going to change, I want only 2 responses where they add their own, or no responses where they add their own. And so these are kinds of things that, so these are premium ones that we do for clients, but we will also be able to put these into our standard programs as well. So associations have a really great interest in that. Another use case for how they're used, this is a patient care chronic condition program that we've created. I'll show you what this looks like. So if you start this thing, just going to hit start. And so this is a combination of text and sort of, quizzy sorts of interactions. So the actual quizzes themselves are not part of MLUs, but they could be. But basically, if I say, hey, I'm uncertain about checking my blood glucose, it says, hey, that's fine. And then it goes right in, and there's that same microlearning unit, and now it's in a different context. And again, this is all available on phones and so forth. And if I say, got it, I can move on from there. I have blood glucose monitoring equipment. I'm going to, so here's that same microlearning unit, all available that way. So that's some of the neat kinds of use cases for how these things can be created. When I go behind the scenes and show you how these things are built, it's going to be pretty clear that these things aren't dependent on any particular platform. They can be, they are totally flexible and portable. It's just a little zip file of content. And so that was another key sort of design capability that we had at the beginning there.
That's fantastic. So I'm guessing, we're all can think about the power of XML here and these, breaking the content into these parts, because they can be put together and then you can build logic in. It's not platform specific, all of those pieces. All right, well, why don't you show us this? How does this work in RSuite? Can you kind of walk us through what the process looks like?
Okay. I'll show you one quick example of another interactive, and I'll show you what the Word doc is that created this. So here's an example of what we call it's a click and learn, but it's with points. So it's kind of like a gamified version of a click and learn, where it says, imagine you're a restaurant, select 6 items from the menu below to create a low-carb meal. All right, so definitely breadsticks. Yep. So it's giving me feedback as I go. Chef salad, definitely need lots of bacon. The scallops and lasagna, and let's have a side of broccoli. So now I click place order, and I didn't do so well, but that's okay. I can try it once more, and I can maybe make some better choices. So it says I have 6 choices. So when I get done with the 6th, that's when it says place order. And now, hey, now I'm doing better. So this is functionality that our clients really respond to because it gets people active. So instead of seeing, so in the old world, you could have had a big table that says, here are the good, here's the good stuff to eat, and here's the stuff that's not so good. But instead of that, it's giving you options, and it's turned into a game, and it creates a real world scenario that you need to manage your way through. And so it's more engaging. It encourages you. Clients, users will spend more time with the content, and they'll actually learn more by going through this sort of scenario-based learning here. So we try to apply good e-learning principles with good sort of technical design principles, which is not that easy to do, but I'm pretty pleased with how it's been going so far. So if you look at this right here, I'm going to pull up the Word document that authored this thing. I'll just pull this up. It's on the other side here. I'll bring it over. So this is an example, and I'll show the Word styles here. So, we never really appreciated the power of Microsoft Word styles than when we started working with RSuite. Don, who's an amazing content engineer, looked at everything that we were doing, and because basically, we had Word documents, but they didn't have really. It was organized, but it didn't really have the kinds of styling, the kind of structure that it really needed. So he worked with us, and Mary did too, and they looked at the final output of the content, and because it's all in a JSON file, that's where the content lives outside of the functionality, and they tried to map how the content gets created and how it flows through to the JSON, so that it could be displayed, for an end user the way I just showed. So the way these things are organized in Word, you've got a header element, so that's where you set the colors, and you have intro text and direction text, and then you get into the body, and so the body has like some initial section where we define things that cover the whole MLU. So what's the big image that's on the left side? How many hotspots are there going to be? And how many hotspots are allowed to be selected? So if I say 6, so then when I get to 6, what is the text that shows up when I get to 6? Well, it says there's a button that says place order, and then when I'm done, it will have a button, and the button says try again. So this is all text. So we made the try again button text is just an element in the Word document, and you can call it. You could change it however you want. And then the CMS will take it from this Word document all the way through to the final interactive. And the author doesn't have to worry about any of that. The author just needs to worry about having correct text, finding the right content, putting it into the right type of MLU, and that should really be all they need to do. So so when you get the feedback at the end here, you define your point ranges, so low, medium, and high. And we use these, the coloring here in the Word doc is really pretty arbitrary, but we tried to make it colored, and Don really did a great job with that, try to color it in a way that it would be easier for authors to be able to know what to do. And we also have those thumbs that say thumbs up. This is 1 thumb up. This one is 2 thumbs up. This one is 3 thumbs up. So those are actually icons that we can reuse. Then we get down to the MLU item itself, and there's the text and the image and how many points it's worth if you click on it. So that one's worth 100 points. But the steamed clams are worth 200 points because that's a healthier choice than the garlic breadsticks, and so on. So it requires some change in how your authors, they need to sort of quantify things. What's the 100? What's the 200? But our authors in general have had some experience creating e-learning pieces, so they took to this right away and enabled them to be able to generate these things really pretty quickly. That's a pretty exciting piece there. All right, so I bet you're wondering how it goes from this kind of Word doc all the way through to the finished product. So that's what I will show you next.
Excellent.
All right.
And by the way,
so for this
if
one,
anybody has questions that they want to ask along the way, please feel free to put those in the questions panel, and we'll get to them here when we get to Q&A in a second. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, sure. All right, so here's an example of another MLU type. This is called a select and reflect, where you click on. This is really good if you have like a lot of things, like some click and learns. If you have more than eight things to click on, it becomes overwhelming. But this is a way that you can have a lot more content in there at the same time, and it also has the ability to capture your thoughts and generate a dynamic PDF. So this is another example of an MLU. So I'll show you what the process is for one of these things. So I will go into RSuite. I'm already logged in here. And I go to my MLU section here, and so I've got a bunch of MLUs that I've created already. I am going to create a new one, so we'll just go through that process. And over here, create MLU from template. So can everybody see this? Do I need to like zoom in more on? I know like these RSuite screens tend to be pretty dense.
I think it's fine. I think it's fine.
People can see it okay.
Now, would an author be doing this step? Would an editor be doing this step? Who does this step?
Yeah, this would be so that's a great question. So the goal, so the way it flows is that it starts with what content. So what are you trying to do? I'm trying to create an interactive that has learning objective X. Okay, fine. Where's the content that enables that I would use here? And chances are it's already in the CMS somewhere, and you can either duplicate it or you can actually reuse particular pieces of it just wholesale like that. There may already be images and things that you can use as well. And then once you see the content and you sort of decide what would be the best kind of an interactive to use of the library of these MLUs that we have, MLU stands for micro learning unit, then you would pick one and you would go from there. So this is all the authors. So this is even before you get your Word template. So what the author would do then is just go here and say create MLU from template. And so now to create the MLU, I've got to give it a title. Let's see. And then you get to choose which MLU type there is. And so right now we've got basically 11, and there's a few more coming. Some of those Alzheimer's ones we haven't turned into standardized stuff yet. It's all designed to be standardized, but we haven't actually built in the templates here yet. So I'm going to choose, so I decided I wanted to do a select and reflect, so I'll select and reflect. This is where I was saying, and maybe Mary, this is a good time for you to talk about this, because when we first started with the MLUs, we externalized the content, but the content might say hotspot 1 and hotspot 2 and what it says, and then it might say, and then what color is the button going to be? And so the whole what color is the button going to be, Mary saw that and said, you know what, Matt, you really need to separate the styling from the content. So you've already separated the functionality from the content, but you need to separate the style. You want to talk about that, Mary?
Sure. Can you hear me? I want to ask if you can understand me. I apologize for the bad head cold. So, anytime you're working with XML, the whole principle behind, using structured markup is separating the content from the format. And what would happen is the author would say, oh, I want this, the heading to be blue, and I want the inline, each item, I want it to be a different shade of blue, and this other thing I want to be orange. And then you'd say, well, what if it's for a different customer? What if they have their own color scheme? Or what if you're trying to say, all of these pieces, when grouped together, should have a common look and feel, and that same MLU might be reused in another group. So, something about blood pressure, maybe it's in the diabetes section, but maybe it's also in the high cholesterol section, right? So if you're doing that, and each sort of section has a different look and feel. Putting the colors hard-coded meant you'd have to go in and actually edit your Word template, and now you're literally changing your content rather than reusing it. So we had the team that created all of the architecture behind the scenes go ahead and separate that information out as well. So when you look at this list and you see, once Matt's done filling out the different bits of metadata that are required here to actually create the MLU, what it's doing is then using a default set of templated files that for every MLU that is of type select and reflect, it has a set of JavaScript files, it has a set of images, it has a set of an index.html file, all of these components that then go together and are packaged to create the MLU itself. So the colors also got separated out and became another one of the templated files that are built into this set.
Right, right. So at the time you're authoring, you create a new container for the MLU, and it's got, and basically the only thing you would be doing is taking the template down and working with that. So I would just do that. I would check it out. I would download it and then check it out. And so there it is, and I have one open here. Here it is. So here's what it looks like when it's empty, right? So it's got header and body, and then every MLU. This is something that sort of Don and Mary and I all just sort of came to, is that for every MLU, it's like there's an item to it, and that item has like a default state and an activated or a clicked state. So in select and reflect, the default state, there really isn't anything there, but there is in the activated state. For the click and learn with points, it has a default state and an activated state. And so each of these MLU items ends up being its own kind of data topic inside the CMS. So if I create something like so, say for example, you're a publisher in a completely different industry, and you've got like a thing of 1,000 definitions, and your definition says, here's the word, here's what it means, and here's an image, or here's a video that goes along with it, or what have you. That could be a reusable piece, so that you can build that little data topic once, just reusing that existing definition content that you already have, and then you could use that actually in multiple MLUs, without even having to redo anything. We haven't gotten to that point of having authoring support inside the MLU, inside the CMS to do that yet, but that's part of our roadmap, because we know it's possible, and these things were, I think, really well designed, by Don and Mary there to make sure that these things can be reusable, as well as you can make a version. Oh, here, let me pull up one that is actually filled out. So let me just pull this over. So this is that MOU that I just showed you with where you click on the different types of drugs. So it may be, so there's a lot of content here, but it may be that I want to move this one to a different column, or I want to just remove this one from this MLU. It's all possible. It's all just changes in the data XML, and it's the map of that particular MLU changes. So you don't have to redo or duplicate any content. It's all just shuffling around and recombining content, which is really why it's so exciting. So here's an example of what that looks like when it's filled out. So once you fill it out, now so you will go back in and basically you'll check it in. I'll go to a new version and check it in. There it is. upload that. Okay, so it's in there, it's checked in. So now, how do I make this one of these cool interactives in the end? So these files, the cool things, so those are basically blank for right now. The next step in the process is going to be convert the word to data, which I assume that most folks are familiar with. Create XML from Word. Okay, so it looks good. One thing I might note that before we do that, if we have any images that are referenced in the document, you would put those images in. So I'll show you one that actually has the images in there already, so you can see what I'm talking about here. Here's reflect. So you can see those are all the names of our authors and things. Actually, they've been in production and building these things for a while now. So here's Input Up Close and Personal. Oh, actually, it's this one I want to show. So if you look at the images, we have an image specialist who goes out and purchases images and things. So these are some of the images that we might use. And again, these were all referenced in the Word document. You can also, add them in later if you need to. It's no big deal. Also, our media person creates a PDF file for each one of these things, which happens a little bit later in the process, but this is where it's created. So in the future, we're going to automate that process, maybe using the new RSuite plugin, that new module where you can automatically create the PDF directly out of the XML. So anyway, so now we're done with the word to data piece. So you'll see here's Insulin Up Close and Personal, and this is what I was talking about. There's only one header, but then in the body, there's multiple topics there, and that's how we designed it here. So I can preview what that looks like. And it actually shows you that with the different images and things. It just shows all that right in there. It's reusing a lot of the same images and things, but that's the idea. Pretty nice. And then the final step in the process is to export this. So basically, what you're seeing in these microlearning units is all the pieces are all there. The images are there. The text is all in the right place, and the functionality, you might notice, like, the functionality is not in here. There's no JavaScript file here. There's no CSS here. This is where that stuff gets added, and it gets added because we have the master files, and it gets assembled, and it always pulls in the latest master file. So that was another really important design consideration, that these things, that these MLUs should all just reference the same functionality over and over again. They shouldn't have a copy of that functionality. And if we stuck a copy of it inside this folder here, then we ran the risk that a user might go in and inadvertently change that. So that was another one of Mary's brainstorms there. And believe me, we accidentally changed some things when we were testing a few times, and we realized, that's not going to work. We need to sort of generate these things on the fly, but not actually give the user, the author, access to it. All that stuff is actually stored in the support tab. So those were some of the really interesting design considerations, when we're talking about the whole authoring process.
And just to interject on that point, the reason you actually see the folders there is because there are cases where somebody might want to override the default templated information. Mm. So if they need to do that for a one-off case, somebody can go in and upload a different CSS file, or slightly modify one of the JavaScript files and put it in the appropriate folder, and then when the MLU is assembled, anything that's in one of the folders that are displayed in this browse tree will override whatever is in the default templates. So in the images, it gets merged. They're standard images, and then there's the images specific to the individual MLU. Those get merged into a single folder. In any of the other folders, basically that's just for overrides. So that's why you see them.
That's right, because we know that we can't always, you know, there's going to be clients and situations where we may need to make some custom changes, and we want to be able to accommodate that, but within the whole reusable framework, basically. So I think that was good to be able to support that. So actually, this is the one I'm going to use. Then the final step in the process. So now at this point, the JSON has been created. So my apologies, I switched to a different one because I was in the wrong one. I mean, they're all, you know, they all function exactly the same, so it's kind of arbitrary which one we show. But if you want to see what the JSON actually looks like, I don't know if that's, yeah. So again, this is all that same content. So now this is where, you know, Mary and her team created the transforms that it went from the Word document to the DITA now to here, where it's already been put into the JSON. So now this is ready to load into the MLU, and the MLU just uses basic, not basic, but sort of the modern web framework. So it's got HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and it's that combining this content that's here that I'm showing you, plus those functionality files. It packages all together into one zip file, and that's where we can deliver it. So we can deliver it to a client, deliver it to whatever delivery platform we want to send it to. And so that's really the coolest part there, is that how all that gets packaged up. And that's the last step in the process, and that's where we do download MLU assembly. Soon we'll have the ability to preview the finished MLU directly from the CMS. That's, you know, it's not critical because, you know, for our authors right now, because they can just do the download and open it up on their desktops. And I'll show you what that looks like. So so that download that I just showed looks like this. So I have an unzipped version of it on my laptop here, so I can show you. But basically, it's got a file that launches it, and then here's all the content. So remember, we were talking about how we separated content from the styles. So here's the colors file, which has all the colors information. So here are all the colors, and this governs any MLU type, so all in the same file. So you don't need 12 colors JSON files. It's just one JSON file that covers all 12 MLU types. But now here's the content file, and you can see, so again, here's the same JSON that we talked about. So that's all there. And now you can see it's got all the JavaScript in there. So this is part of the assembly. This image file contains all the images, plus, you know, our standard images, plus the ones that were put into that specific MLU into the images folder. The fonts, the PDF, the CSS are all right there. So now we want to see what it looks like. So I can click on it, and here it is.
Beautiful.
And all that functionality now shows right here. It also has the ability to, you know, so if you remember, I showed you there's a PDF. So the PDF is invoked when you click the Save button. You can click on it, and then here's all the information right there, saved into a PDF. This is the process that we are working on automating, or we will be doing that, part of the roadmap.
Wonderful.
So that's it, end to end, right there.
That's fantastic. Well, Matt, thank you for doing that. We have about 10 minutes left for some questions. I'm gonna let you go ahead and just keep your screen up in case you need to reference anything. For everyone in the audience, if you have a question, please feel free to use the questions pane. That's one way that you can ask a question, and I'll just read your question. You can also send me a chat message if you like, and I can do it that way. Or if you want to do it, if you want to do an audio question, I can just raise your virtual hand there, and I'll unmute you, and you can ask your question like that. So get those questions in. Matt, the first question that we have says, is the reusable content cut and pasted into the Word document, or is it just referenced?
That's a great question. So for now, we've had to copy and paste it into the Word docs from wherever they came from, and then see, we're in the very early stages of implementing our CMS. So the source content that we would be reusing isn't there yet. So we have to create the association later, basically. So when that source content comes in, then we will link those up, and we'll be able to manage them as a whole and be able to update them more easily. So the goal is to be able to actually do that reuse. And so in that template, if you're going to reuse something from another item, you would just put in the reference to that in the Word doc, or then eventually we'll just have it all in the XML editor inside of RSuite, and we would just do it that way. We would just pull it in literally, on the fly from other parts of the system.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would think that it could do, obviously the amazing part of the process is not so much the conversion from the Word to the XML, it's how all these XML parts can be used together. So you could bring some in by XML or by Word and convert it to XML, and then go grab other parts that have already been converted to XML and build all sorts of outputs.
And I would just
go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead. The one thing I want to say is that maybe there'd be a question about it too. Is that have we experienced any cost savings or efficiencies around this? And when we first started, we had to have our vendor create all these things. So we wrote a Word document, and they took it and manually created JSON files from it, basically following their templates. But that was very inefficient. So we went from that being a very costly process to making it so that our authors can just do Word and no one has to mess with the code at all. So we dropped the cost from maybe over $1,000 to probably more like a couple $100 of internal time in order to generate these. Media aside, if you have to create new images or shoot new video or something, then of course the cost goes up. But if you're working with assets that you already have, then it becomes very cost effective to be able to do this. And I think it's something that can be used across any industry, really. I mean, these things are all it's all kind of just standardized functionality. We have to be using it for health and wellness and things like that, but they can be used for anything. We tried to keep that in mind and not have anything too specific to any one area of content.
Okay. All right, I got another question or two here, and those of you out there who have other questions, please feel free to step up, ask them. Like I said, you can raise your hand, or you can put it in the questions pane or the chat, whatever. Matt, one of the questions we had to do with images, that you've got some images that you've brought in from outside, other places. Are you currently doing anything around image rights management within RSuite, or is that part of the plan along the way?
Oh yeah, we have to do that, and that's part of the challenge. That's another important justification of the CMS is that up until using the CMS, it's been very difficult to track the image rights management. So let me see if I can show you in production here. Let me show you I can tell you exactly what we're talking about here. So if you go into library and how our images are organized, we have been able to organize our images based on the rights. So our medical illustrations are ones that we create ourselves. So we own all the rights to them. But for one of our authors to use it, they need to check it with our medical staff first. Then we've got unrestricted images. These are the ones that we bought and we can use anywhere, anyhow. We can distribute them. We have relationships with stock photo places, and so we know that if we're going to need this for print and digital, then we'll buy it and it will go in here, and then the authors will know what they can use and what they can't use. There's certain images that we only have rights to use for digital, so those things are in here. And then these are images that we've created ourselves, patient ed print and patient ed digital, that we've created, either photos that we took ourselves or other sorts of drawings, diagrams, infographics, things like that. So we've organized in that way, and what's nice is that we can set rights on these folders so that people who aren't authorized to go and pull in medical illustrations or whatever won't be able to get at those images. So we're trying to use the CMS implementation as like a clean slate to really manage all of our image rights really effectively right out of the gate. And we're pulling in, and part of the content migration from our existing content that we want to reuse, we're not going to pull in stuff that we don't have the rights for or that we're unsure about the rights for. So we'd rather recreate or repurchase than have to make a potentially dubious decision about what we can use or reuse.
All right, and Emily from EL Education followed up with asking if these are sorted manually or if there's metadata/search that you've set up around these different images, or do they always have to go through the browse tree there?
Oh, you're talking about the images? Oh no, they all have tons of metadata. You know, yeah. I mean, we've got several 100,000 images that we're planning on getting in here. That's how many we have today. So yeah, it's metadata all the way. Yeah.
All right, another question here. Let's see if I can translate this. So some publishers, not every publisher has a need for an HTML output. You know, to have something on the web. After you've done this process, could you have similar functionality in, say, an EPUB 3 file? And I guess, can you also just go ahead and create a really nice looking PDF from this same content?
Right, that's a great question. So it's kind of ironic because when one of the benefits of using Word is that you can generate a PDF right away from it. But because of how the system is structured, you got to go to XML, and then you got to get it out of XML back into something that's more visual. So we are planning on using Topleaf. You know, I guess that's the RSuite Publish add-on. I can't keep all the names of your new products straight, David.
RSuite Publish.
Okay, so our plan is to use that to automatically generate those PDFs. And you know, every one of our microlearning units will always have a PDF to go along with it because you know, for compliance and for getting at all possible, you know, users and things, especially older folks who might want to print the stuff out. So we always create that. Right now it's a manual process, but eventually we'll use RSuite to automate that. And in terms of your question about EPUB, you know, we don't really do too much with EPUB right now, but I would think that you've got all the functionality and that someone who knows EPUB real well could create an EPUB export that would give you that functionality. And I think that's something we're going to want to look at in the future, I think.
Excellent. About how long did it take to set this project up, and what were the biggest challenges in building the solution?
Well, you know, we started with a vendor, and we said, look, we want these things to be scalable and flexible. So they did that for us, but they could not have anticipated all the possible future, you know, things that we want to do, and they couldn't really anticipate that we would be even using a CMS. And I told them that, but that didn't really mean anything to them. So it required us to have to reorganize how the content is externalized. So for example, you know, these things have footers, and they were authoring each footer separately, and we just want to apply the footer from a standardized library at the time of output. But the footer file had the link to the PDF in it, so that wasn't going to work. So we had to redo the JSON so that the link to the PDF is in the header, because the header we do have control over and does change from item to item. So we had to do some tweaks along the way to make sure that the design was exactly right. You know, it started with everything's manual, and if you create 200 of them, you need to make a code change. You got to regenerate. You got to open up each one manually, add the new content or the new functionality, and and then zip it all up again. So now we're at the point where we're much more automated, but I still think that there's room that we can make it go further. But I mean, we started creating the MLUs. I'm going to have to say maybe around the middle of the year last year, and we were able to move pretty quickly. But we've had to also make enhancements to those MLUs as we go. Like certain things were hard coded, and instead we wanted to be able to control them, but have our authors control them. So there's been a steady set of enhancements around that. But first we had our partner build them, then we pulled them into the CMS, and so they support us a little bit. But that's when RSuite did a lot, and now we're at the point where there's really very little for that vendor to do. They've engineered themselves out of a job, kind of, but they knew that, and they can always help us build brand new MLU types if we need to.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are up against our time here, so I'm going to just basically take back control again, and basically, and just tell everybody thank you. I did copy down what I thought was the process here. So if anybody wants to take a quick screenshot of that or write it down or something like that, Matt, if you want to look at it and say, oh, that wasn't right or something like that, let me know. And otherwise, I'll let that stay up for just another 10 seconds or so.
No, I think that's great. That's just right.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for doing this today. Mary, thank you for coming in while you were sick and contributing as you did as well. We're excited about Staywell, and I think, Matt, when you get your video content store up and running here, we're going to be excited about having you back to talk about that too. So there's a lot of really, really cool things going on at Staywell, and I feel like RSuite's right in the middle of it. So very excited about that.